Hello and welcome to the F&O Show on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I'm Darshan Mehta. Good morning, Agam.
Good morning, Darshan. I'm Agam Vakil. Here are the headlines. Markets are correcting for the second day in a row and the Nifty trades near 10,850. Most sectoral indices are trading with cuts. Stocks like Jet Airways and Eicher Motors are seeing fresh short positions along with a surge in open interest. Bajaj Auto's December sales rise compared to last year, but are a tad below Bloomberg Quint's estimates. Eicher Motors is the top loser on the Nifty after its motorcycle sales for the month of December were the lowest in 2018. And Jet Airways declines after it's defaulted on a loan repayment to a consortium of Indian banks led by the State Bank of India.
Okay, the market looks weak at this point of time. If you're looking at what exactly is happening, take a look at the Nifty. The Nifty is seeing a downtick of almost 40 points at this point of time. So there is clear indication of weakness that's there as far as our markets are concerned. Open interest build-up is absolutely negligible for the Nifty. If you're looking at the Nifty Bank, let's see what the Nifty Bank is indicating at this point of time. The Nifty Bank is seeing much more open interest build-up of, that one is seeing open interest build-up of 0.3%. That too is trading slightly weak in today's trade. So that's the traction that we're seeing in as far as the benchmark indices is concerned. Let's see where positions are taken. We are close to the 10,900 mark in trade. So what we're seeing is that in today's trade, call writers are active at 10,900 and 11,000, and put writers are shedding positions and they are taking in positions from 10,600 to 10,800. As far as the total open interest build-up is concerned, where are positions being taken, we can clearly see the fact that, you know, from 10,900 to higher levels, it's the call writers that are active, and from 10,800 to lower levels, it's the put writers that are active in trade. So it seems a broad range, but 11,000 seems to be the big support that the market is looking, big resistance that the market is looking at this point of time. Agam, anything on the stock specific side?
Absolutely, Darshan. There is a lot of the stocks out there which are seeing a considerable increase in open interest. And let's pull that chart up and see where there is so much traction there. And of course, we've spoken about something like a Jet Airways and Eicher Motors, which does figure in that list, but something like a BEML2 is seeing 25% gains in open interest even as the underlying advances by 2%. So fresh longs there. And DCB Bank and Hexaware are also standing out, and they're actually seeing longs coming through, considering a 12% increase in open interest for each of these counters. Let's talk about your stocks which are seeing unwinding in trade, and again that's where you know, there could be some pressure coming through for something like well, actually, MRF is not correcting that much, but it certainly is looking at a decline of 2.5% in OI. Oracle Financial Services, which has picked up a little bit of steam, is also seeing unwinding in today's day of trade, followed by Oil India and Nestle India. But on the whole, yeah, felt fairly stable, more gainers as compared to losers, at least as far as your futures and options spaces goes, and we'll continue to track some of these moves today. Darshan.
Okay, before we get in our guest on the show, here's a reminder. If you have any queries regarding the futures and options stocks that we will discuss, you can call us on 022454044141 or write to us on Twitter, Facebook with the AskBQ hashtag. So I'll just name out the stocks that we'll discuss currently with our guest. The first one is Eicher Motors because of the sales number. We'll talk about Jet Airways, what exactly should one do on Jet Airways. We'll talk about the Bharti twins, which have been buzzing over the past few days, Sun Pharma, Escorts, NMDC, and then we'll talk about the metal pack. So these are some of the stocks that we have in our list that we want to discuss, you know, with our experts. So if you have queries on any of these stocks, you can write to us. Either even if you have queries on the Nifty or the Bank Nifty, feel free to write to us, and if they're relevant, we'll get them answered by our guest. So let's welcome our F&O experts for the day, Brijesh Singh from StockAxis and K. Subramanyam from Altamount Capital joining us on the show. Brijesh, good morning. I'll start with you. What's your view on the Nifty? We are 10,900. What should one do if they want to take a position on the Nifty now?
Good morning, Darshan. See, no doubt Nifty has been trading in a range of, say, narrow range of 10,800 followed by 10,950 or say 60 on the higher side. But the candlesticks pattern excuse me, but the candlesticks pattern on the hourly chart or on the shorter term time frame of the chart, that's are indicating that Nifty, it's not an easy the Nifty would be able to cross 10,950 or say 960. That would be acting as a resistance. So what I'm been looking Nifty, that if someone wants to play for an intraday sort of thing, the present rate of 10,900 or say 10,920, one can go for a sell side with the stop loss of 10,960 and look for the target of 10,840 or to 10,820 zone.
Okay, Mr. Subramanyam, good morning to you as well. What about you? How do you make trade on the indices right now?
Morning, Agam. Well, today I think we are seeing some profit taking after yesterday's smart gains, but I think closer to levels of 10,750. I think that's the level where I think we will have some good decent support. So 10,750 to 10,800, that should be the support zone for the Nifty. The Bank Nifty on a relative term looks better, and I think enjoys decent support at around 27,000, 27,100. So I have a recommendation on the Bank Nifty per se. So I am recommending a bull call spread in for the forthcoming week. That will be ending on January 1st, since we are already the penultimate day of the current series. So one could possibly buy a 27,300 strike January 10 contract. That's quoting at around 290 when I saw it, and one could also sell a 27,800 strike contract, but that will be two lots. So the net cost comes to about 120. So risk reward very favorable. Maximum gain one would make it 380. To be on the safer side, also recommend a stop loss of 60.
Okay, that's the view that's coming in as far as the indices is concerned. Let's get going as far as the stocks are concerned. But just before we move on to that, for people who don't know what a bull call spread is, and Mr. Subramanyam explained it in his strategy, but nevertheless, it is employed when one expects a moderate up move in a security. In this strategy, a call option of a certain strike is purchased and a call option of a higher price is similarly sold. So what Mr. Subramanyam said, buy the 27,300 call and sell two lots of 27,800 call. So he expects a moderate move in which you will make money. So that's the strategy that's coming in. But let's get straight to stock specific strategies. Mr. Subramanyam, on the stock specific strategies, which are the stocks that you want to talk about today?
Yeah, today's weakness is in the metal side, and but again, we already seen some sharp gap down, but the weakness definitely remains, and if the market should go into some sort of a profiting mode, metals probably will be more vulnerable. But I get to be on the safer side, giving a covered put since this early part of the series. So one could possibly sell Jan futures of Tata Steel and also correspondingly sell a 500 strike put that's quoting at around 16. Keep a target of 485 and one could keep a stop loss of 515. And on the buy side, I've got a buy on Wipro. Now Wipro on the charts, at least it appears to be an outperformer even compared to the likes of a TCS and an Infi. So I think even the rolls for the Jan series suggested that probably some of the shorts didn't actually carry forward. So I suspect that we could possibly see some outperformance coming from Wipro. This could be bought for a possible target of 340, that is Wipro futures. And but also suggest keeping a stop loss of 325.
Okay, so well, of course, Mr. Subramanyam also has a covered put, and I'm going to explain a bit before we move on. Covered put is a strategy employed when an investor holds a near-term view with a neutral to slightly bearish inclination on a security. This involves selling of a put option in an asset in which the investor has either sold securities or is short in its futures. And as Mr. Subramanyam has already taken that up, with that, I'll move across to Brijesh and take his views on stocks as well. Brijesh, what do you have in your radar today?
See, Agam, I have one stock from metal and another stock from a banking sector. So the Federal Bank looks good on the charts on a shorter term to the medium term time frame, and on a different news business channels, I've been recommending when the stock was trading somewhere around 80 or 82 zone. And after making a base of 88 to 90 zone, the stock has moved up. And the previous swing high has been broken with the increase in volume. Right now, the stock has been quoting somewhere around 94.5. of say 95 rupees. So if someone wants to play for a long side, one can look out to buy this counter with the stop loss of 91 and play for the target of 100 rupees. If the time frame to hold this counter would be a 1 week, but suppose someone has a view of going and buying in the cash, and if he has a time frame of say 9 month to a 12 month, then the target can be extended to the level of 125 to 140 zone. The second counter would be an NMDC. The trend line breakout has been witnessed in the shorter term time frame. The previous swing high has been broken. The stock is moving above that, which indicates the bullish view. 95 to 96 zone can be used for an accumulation purpose with the stop loss of 93.5. Play for the target of 100 rupees.
Okay, those are the stocks that's been spoken about. Let's get to speaking about some of the stocks that are in news and that are buzzing. Brijesh just spoke about NMDC. Also, the additional fundamental news that comes out is that NMDC is considering a buyback, and on Jan 8th they will probably decide about it. 10% open interest build up. The counter is up 2.5%. Remember, they have cash in excess of 5,500 crores on the books, so even a 10% or even a 25% buyback is possible, and the broader sense is that the government is looking and asking some of the PSUs to do a buyback to meet the divestment target. So Mr. Subramanyam, I'll come to you. Brijesh is bullish on NMDC. A quick check on your end. What are the F&O trends indicating in NMDC, and what would your take be?
Well, surely on back of this news, I think we could see some upside, but not a very huge upside. I think the stock has been a relative underperformer, and let's not forget it belongs to the metal pack, where we have seen some relative underperformance. So if I were to really take a call, maybe just based on this news, the stock has the potential up to go up to levels of maybe about close to levels of 101, 102, where I would definitely recommend some profit booking. Beyond that, I would probably just be neutral.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's the view on NMDC. And of course, so we've had some downgrades this morning from CLSA on something like a Tata Steel and JSW Steel. Of course, they've also downgraded Hindalco to a sell. But I'm going to focus my attention to the steel companies. And of course, CLSA suggests that the reason for their downgrade is a possible deterioration in demand in China, which could lead to pressure on commodity prices, and in turn could lead to weakness in some of these metal companies as well, which is why they have downgraded both JSW Steel and Tata Steel to a sell rating and also cut their price targets. Partially the reason why we are seeing weakness in Tata Steel and JSW Steel. Let's pull up the charts and see how they've done over the previous, well, perhaps couple of months, and take a look at whether or not there has been any divergence, at least in both of them. Of course, they are very closely linked peers. Earlier, Darshan had specifically mentioned the curse of JSW Steel and its entry of the Nifty, and it has ever since continued its downward spiral since it's moved into the Nifty, and today is no different. But we are seeing pressure today as well. And again, if we could actually have those charts, those 3-month charts, and perhaps see a comparison of how JSW Steel has moved in comparison to Tata Steel, and maybe take a look at whether or not there has been. So JSW Steel has come off around as much as 23% in the last 3 months, and let's take a look at Tata Steel as well. That perhaps has seen a little bit of a correction, but not as much as JSW Steel. That's down around 13–14%. Brijesh, I'm going to come to you and take up both these stocks. Well, you can take up whichever one that's first on your list. How would you go about these stocks? Would you initiate fresh shorts?
See, as what you have said about the JS Steel, as he entered in the Nifty 50 zone, the upside swing has come to has been reversed. So from making a high of 427, the stock on a weekly chart has been consistently moving down, breaking all the important moving average, and the down has been increased by the volume. So that indicates the more pain would be there. So right now the stock has been quoting somewhere around 294. So on an immediate basis, on the higher side, resistance lies at 305 to 308 zone. The tough resistance is somewhere around 325. So till 325 825 has not been crossed. So short term to the medium term time frame indicates the bearishness view. Now coming on the downside, the stock has a support at 265 followed by 230 zone. So if someone wants to play for a sell side at the present rate, one can go for a sell side with the stop loss of 305 and play for the target of 265. Time frame can be a 1 month or say or a 2 month also. So definitely the trend has been down for the JSW Steel. Regarding with the Tata Steel has been concerned, on a weekly chart, the stock has been making a lower highs formation, which is giving a negative view. But the stock has been trading in the range of 470, 475 on a downside, followed by 425, 430 on the higher on a higher part. So right now, somewhere around 503, the stock has been quoting, and the oscillators which have been there, they have been trading in near the oversold zone. So at the present rate, I would not be comfortable of going short, but definitely if someone wants to play for a short, then somewhere around 510, 515 if it trades, then one can go for a sell side with a stop loss of 525 and look for the target of 475.
Okay, that's the view that's coming in. Let's talk about the stock of the day, and that is Eicher Motors. It's down 6%, given the fact that the auto sales number for December for Royal Enfield have come in much below what the street was anticipating. Look at the open interest build up, 25% open interest build up, that too on the short side. So we'll ask our guests what they believe. It's below the 22,000 level mark with the downtick that came into the counter today. Mr. Subramanyam, Eicher Motors, it's already fallen 6%. At the current level, what should one do? Is there more potential for downside, or would you wait for a possible spike in the price before you start shorting it, or you have a contrarian view and would go long on Eicher Motors?
Well, the auto counters on a whole are definitely entering into some sort of strong correction phase. Even likes of Maruti, which was the stronger one, even that seems to be entering into some strong correction mode. Eicher Motors no exception. So I think one has to be a bit cautious in this sector, and going forward, I think if I'm unable to take a trade on the short side, maybe one could keep a stop loss of closer to levels of 22,900, and but the downside odds are high that probably it will go down to all the way up to levels of 20,000. So I think the risk reward favors a short for an Eicher motor. And unfortunately, the option space is not very active. I think so. Futures is the only way out. So from that angle, I think anybody having the stock would be well advised to hedge, for any possible downside.
Okay, well, that's coming in on Eicher Motors. I think we should, pick up on something like a Jet Airways, because as we all know that, now what has now been reported is that the company has acknowledged a default in one of its payments in the consortium, and of course State Bank of India leads that consortium right now. This is not completely out of the ordinary, of course, because we all know that the company has been reeling under financial stress of late. It's down only 2%, so the reaction to the stock is not that extreme. But the open interest certainly has surged by as much as 12% right now. We should pull up the charts as well and see how Jet Airways have been trading. And we have been discussing Jet Airways, in fact, over the last perhaps 3 or 4 weeks. It's not necessarily been extremely volatile, but we certainly have seen trade within a considerable range. On a 3-month basis, of course, there's been an uptick of around 60%. And even yesterday, we were comparing Jet Airways to how it's panned out against Interglobe Aviation. But notwithstanding the nearly 10% or 9% gains for Jet Airways over the last 7 days, we must take into cognizance what's happening fundamentally, but what's going on technically and what's going on in the derivatives markets. Well, Brijesh, I'm going to come to you on this one. Currently at 275, would you go long, short on Jet Airways, or would you want to avoid taking any positions at this point in time?
See, Agam, no doubt, if I compare Jet Airways chart with the Indigo chart, the Indigo chart are looking much more promising. And in morning show yesterday, when I was speaking up on the aviation sector, Indigo charts are much more better than as compared to the Jet Airway. The shorter term time frame of the charts, what I've been looking at, somewhere around 155, 160, the stock has moved up to the level of somewhere around say 355, and after that we have seen a profit booking. Now stock has been quoting somewhere around 275, so it's been trading in a narrow range of 260, 265 on a downside, followed by 285, 289 on the higher side. But the oscillators are been trading on the overbought zone, and which indicates little bit bearishness view. So I'll play with the sell side. 275 the stock has been quoting, so if it trades somewhere around 278, 280, one can go for a sell side with the stop loss of 288 and look for the target of 260 to 264 zone.
The other stocks that we want to highlight are the Bharti twins. Over the past few days, there have been strong positive traction that's come in both on Bharti Airtel and Bharti Infratel. Brijesh, any of these counters that you would take a long position on?
Darshan, yesterday also in telecom sector, I was been bullish on Bharti, and I gave that if the stock has been trading above 318, one can go for a long side with the stop loss of 312 and play for the target of 323 to 325 zone. Still, I'm maintaining the same view. 318, if it is able to cross, one can go for a buy side with the stop loss of 312 and play for the target of 323 to 325 zone. Any closing above 325. The stock can jump to the level of 333, but that would be very much difficult. So the stock has been in a range of 325 on the high side, 312 on the downside.
Okay, well, moving on, let's address something like a Sun Pharma as well. Now, again, Sun Pharma has been making the moves because of fundamental reasons purely. It's not moving too much right now. Of course, that's actually seeing very little traction. Today's day of trade is at around 435. Darshan, what else are you spotting in Sun Pharma? Because this one clearly is...
Yeah, Sun Pharma, basically the thing happened that the counter did manage to correct significantly post all that whistleblower allegation. It has managed to recover significantly. Over the past few days, we are seeing that there is traction that's happening. Today, it's seeing a little bit of short covering. But again, it has come back to the levels where it was ahead of the whistleblower issue that happened on Sun Pharma. So there is strong traction that's seen on Sun Pharma, and not only Sun Pharma. Over the past few days, the entire pharma pack is seeing a little bit of traction since the market is wobbly. Mr. Subramanyam, any view on Sun Pharma at this level, 435? Are you seeing any kind of direction, positional trade on Sun Pharma?
So it's very difficult to do a trade on Sun Pharma because you do have some negative news flow, and then it opens with a gap down, and then you are back to square one. So I think I would probably avoid. I think on the higher side, again, it could face a resistance closer to levels of I think 450, 460. So yeah, probably I would not take the risk of taking a trade on Sun Pharma. The odds are still high that it will have some lower prices to reach. In fact, on the pharma side, there are other promising stocks like some Glenmark, then you also have Alembic Pharma. So there are a lot of stocks which are looking relatively positive. So I would rather bet on those rather than bet on Sun Pharmaceutical at the current juncture.
Okay, so we've spoken about escorts, but I also want to address what's happening at Mahindra & Mahindra. And of course, we know that the weakness that we've seen in the last 2 days, and it's pronounced weakness. There's intensifying selling pressure coming through, not only in the futures and options space, but in the cash markets too. It's come off quite substantially over the last 2 days. It's down 3% today as well, and open interest surging by as much as 6%. So there are clear shorts there, and we've seen volumes rise in the cash markets. But do remember that M&M has come back and recovered from levels of around below the mark of 700 to, at one point in time, it was about 800, and since then it has come off to a certain extent. From a 1 month perspective, cumulatively down around 5.5%. But we're here to take stock of what's going on right now over the past 2 days. Brijesh, have things changed technically for M&M considering these 2 days of weakness? How would you trade Mahindra & Mahindra?
See, if someone has a view of investment, then with a 1 year plus time horizon, then definitely this rate or anything somewhere on 710, 715 one can use for an accumulation purpose. But if someone has a view of playing F&O sort of thing, the stock has come down from a level of 800 plus with increase in volume. That indicates the negativity for the chart. Now the stock has been quoting somewhere on 748, 755, 756 would be the first resistance, followed by 762. So one can keep that thing as a stop loss of 762 and play for the target of 735. Anything on the closing basis of 735, then another 10 to 15 rupees can be seen on the downside. So right now, for a very short term time frame, definitely trend has been down. But if someone has a view of longer term, then one can go for an investment point of view.
Two stocks in which there is decent open interest build up, and that too on the long side, which I want our guest to address, BEML and Ujjivan Financial. So Mr. Subramanyam, you can talk about BEML. What are you spotting? What does this indicate? A high open interest build up. What is it indicating to you?
The stock has been a relative outperformer in the last few months, and we have seen some pretty aggressive buying coming about in the counter. So, but it is also, and now of course it closer to crossing a very significant resistance level as well. So I would probably just maybe keep a trailing stop loss of at around maybe 900 thereabouts, and wait for a target of around 970. So, but a stock which clearly is showing signs of outperformance.
Okay, guys. So on that note, we've had a good hour, a little over an hour actually of trade coming through. So I'm going to take our experts' view on whether or not they spotted something interesting over this 1 hour of trade, because I'm sure the dynamics must have changed from 9:30 to as much as 10:30. So Mr. Subramanyam, I'm going to come back to you. Do you spot anything interesting now at this point in time that you may want to point out?
Yeah, I think the tech counters seem to be in some sort of an action today. So NID Tech catches my attention. It's a quoting at around 1175. So I think possibly could advance up to levels of 1210 for the day, and one could buy this, but also keep a stop loss of 1150.
And Brijesh, what about you? Anything interesting that you're spotting on your screens?
See, what Subramanyam has said, definitely IT counters are looking much more promising right now. So KPIT looks good on the chart. Somewhere at 218, the stock has been quoting. Keep a strict stop loss of 213 or say 14 and play for the target of 225. And even look out the Federal Bank. As I have said, the chart is looking promising and the target is 100 and your stop loss would be 91.
Okay, well, on that note, guys, I'm going to take a moment to thank both our experts, Mr. Subramanyam and Brijesh, for joining us and taking us through their views in the markets. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. But for more news and updates, stay tuned on Bloomberg.